Brilliance Audio presents Prius or Pickup, How the Answers to Four Simple Questions Explain America's Great Divide, by Marc Hetherington and Jonathan Weiler, performed by Scott Merriman. If you had to buy a new car, would you be more likely to choose a Prius or a pickup truck? When you imagine your favorite meal, does it feature classic American dishes like meatloaf and mashed potatoes? Or do you crave more exotic fare like chicken curry and vegetable biryani? When you turn on the radio, do you listen to country music or oldies? Or is your dial set to stations that play hip-hop, reggae, or electronic dance music? If you've ever had the opportunity to choose a name for a child, have you opted for names beginning with soft-sounding letters such as Louise or Sean, or hard-sounding ones like David, Catherine, or Tom? These might seem like odd questions for two political scientists to be asking, but before we explain, bear with us for one more. When you think about the values you want children to have, do these qualities include things like respect for elders, obedience, and good manners and behavior? Or would you prefer that children be independent, self-reliant, curious, and considerate? All of these questions have something in common. They tell us something important about the way you view the world, and also about the way you vote. To understand why these questions are so revealing, consider an anecdote shared by the MSNBC host Joe Scarborough, a former Republican congressman, in a 2013 television documentary. The subject of the film, The Making of All the President's Men, the landmark movie about Watergate, gave Scarborough the opportunity to recall his upbringing during the tumultuous 1960s. Back then, protest and violence were being broadcast into Americans' homes on a nightly basis. Republican Richard Nixon was competing with Vice President Hubert Humphrey for the nation's highest office, and the two men had very different ideas about the solutions to all that tumult. Although he was just a small boy at the time, Scarborough knew that the country was divided both culturally and politically, and that people had to choose sides. And the choice was clear. Did you want to join the side of Jane Fonda or John Wayne? He asked rhetorically. My parents chose John Wayne, which meant they chose Nixon. Consider those two personalities for a moment. John Wayne was tough, the kind of guy who could keep good people safe and set bad guys straight. He was a throwback to a simpler time when men were men. Everyone knew he was the boss. Jane Fonda, on the other hand, symbolized opposition to the war in Vietnam. She had the gall to question the authority of her leaders and encouraged others to try to understand the war through the eyes of America's enemies in the conflict, the North Vietnamese, earning her the moniker Hanoi Jane from her many detractors. Not everyone alive today is familiar with the mid-20th century incarnations of John Wayne and Jane Fonda, but the archetypes they represent are still with us, even if the names embodying them have changed with time. The political equivalent of John Wayne is now perhaps Clint Eastwood. The likes of, say, Ellen DeGeneres now represent what Jane Fonda embodied in the 1960s. More than political styles, these icons represent something akin to personality types. One group stands for toughness, the other for empathy and compassion. More basically, each of them stands for a particular outlook on life, or as we term it, a specific worldview. The term worldview is a catch-all for someone's deeply ingrained beliefs about the nature of the world and the priorities of a good society. Worldview can encompass all sorts of cultural considerations, such as ideas about philosophy and morality. It is also, and even more significantly, shaped by psychological influences such as your emotions and the imprint left by past experiences. Of the many factors that make up your worldview, one is more fundamental than any other in determining which side of the divide you gravitate toward. Your perception of how dangerous the world is. Fear is perhaps our most primal instinct after all, So it's only logical that people's level of fearfulness informs their outlook on life.